Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Memory Care with Teresa. This is a podcast all about dementia and how it affects so many different parts of our lives, our families, our parents, our spouses, and how we can come alongside and join them on the journey. So, welcome back. I'm Teresa Youngstrom. I'm a dementia specialist. This is episode 7. And we've got a really great guest to share with you today. Lieutenant Jim Petry is with me. And I'd like to just read his bio to you so that you can learn a little about Jim before we bring him on. First of all, he's a friend, and I've worked with him in the community. It's been so great to team up with the local first responders and be able to teach and do some training there. And it was so amazing the way they responded. But it was thanks to Jim that I got in there to do that training. And so I wanted to bring him here to you so you could learn about Jim. So Lieutenant Jim Petry has been in the fire service for 30 years. He's currently a full-time lieutenant at Miami Township Fire and EMS in Claremont County in Ohio. He coordinates their community paramedic program and peer support team. He's been a member of the Tri-State Peer Support Team since 2019. He's currently working on his master's degree. He's not busy enough on his master's degree at Xavier University to become a licensed practice counselor. He's a certified Ohio paramedic and EMS and fire instructor, in addition to being a state fire inspector. Jim is passionate in supporting others to live a physically, mentally, and spiritual great quality of life. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Teresa. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I remember when I got to come in and talk to your team, and it was so great how interested they really were in talking about people that have dementia or other types of mental health challenges. And that was just really, I had no idea that this type of training was available there, or that I could come in and speak. I think I met you actually at a chamber meeting, didn't I?
Yeah, that's when I spoke up at that chamber meeting because I was looking for more resources in the community to help me with my community paramedic program.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was a great day. I was so glad that I got to meet you that day. And so I realize you've been doing this about 30 years, but what keeps you coming back to a challenging job like this? Because this isn't easy and the emergencies happen every day. And what keeps you coming back?
I think it's our ability from the first responder. I mean, we take this job and we get in this career because everybody says they want to help people, but you truly have to have a passion and have a servant heart or a servant soul to do this kind of work and to do it as long as I have. I think that it truly, I feel blessed to be able to give back to the community and help truly change people's lives. Sometimes it's very minuscule, but it's still something.
Yeah, that's amazing. What would you say was the first time you saw someone who either wasn't thinking right, that it could be something, related to dementia or schizophrenia, some other mental health challenge? Well, it's hard to discern for you too. Is this alcohol, drug related, or do they really have a brain failure? But what are some examples of the first time you saw this type of activity in your world?
So when I first initially started my career, I was in Florida in the Fort Myers area. And so obviously during the season, there's a large population of senior citizen geriatric patients. And so I started seeing it then, but there was little education. And through the years, we just did what we could. And unfortunately, the clients or patients that have dementia, we don't see them until it's an emergency, till they have taxed the family, they've taxed the nursing home that they're in, and they're in crisis. And so we never really knew what to do. And so fast forward to now, here in Miami Township, 23 years, and we're seeing more and more of it. The population of our elderly population continues to go up. In fact, Miami Township has 44,000 residents, and the 60 and older makes up 24% of that population.
Wow, that's huge.
And so the number of runs that we are seeing, that my guys out in that are making the runs are seeing, are just drastically increasing, especially when it comes to cognitive decline associated with the dementia.
I'm sure you have a lot of repeat runs in that area too.
Yes, we do. And usually that, unfortunately, like I say, by the time they called us, we're sometimes sedating. We're sometimes having to sedate these folks. And after your training, I realized that we didn't have to do that, that there's a better way to manage these folks. And it's like you like to say, come along beside them and befriend them and try to de-escalate. And a lot of times we don't even need to transport now.
Oh, that just warms my heart. I'm telling you, it was interesting to watch the faces of your, well, you have what, 7 stations in
No, four stations with anywhere from 14 to 18 men, or firefighters on a day, men and women.
Okay. Yeah. So it was just incredible doing the training with them that there actually was an alternative to for first responders, that you don't just have to come in and, subdue the person and sedate them and then transport, and to be able to pause, and maybe you can, like you said, get on their team and, you know, agree with what's going on, even though they could be completely wrong, but in that moment, send one person in to get on their team, and offer to help. It just, I'm just so excited about that. So do you have any examples of things that they've done after we taught there?
So after your training, my guys probably brought to my attention at least 5 or 6 within the next few months, 5 or 6 episodes, some of them at retirement homes where they should hopefully have a better perspective on how to manage these people. But yet, because they're understaffed and overwhelmed, a lot of times they escalate these patients. And so that's when we get called. And our guys said it was amazing, because before we did what they did, we didn't know how to de-escalate the thing. And so when they came in, I actually talked to a couple of the staff members, to the administrators, and they said, hey, your guys did amazing. We don't know what you guys, what you did, but you really de-escalated the whole situation, and we thank you. Right. And so that's one example. That's one example of, just having a little bit of education, just a couple days worth of education, how we make a positive impact on that population.
Yeah. Yeah, because moving them again, subduing them, and sedating them with big drugs and transporting them and having them wake up in another new place, I'm not sure we've fixed anything.
No, and so sorry about that. I thought I had my phone off.
Okay.
No, and so with my community paramedic program, I mean, I'm out in the community every day now, 5 days a week. I'm in the community, and I actually have a lot of interaction with folks, because my guys will refer. I'll go in and I actually am laying out some of the education you gave me. I do that with the families, and I explain to them that they don't have to be right, that they don't have to correct the loved one when they tell me they're 78 and yet they're 80, or that they live in Chicago when they're here in Cincinnati. I'm like, it doesn't matter. And they go, well, no, they need to be right. And I said, no, they don't need to be right. They don't need to be right. Who cares? Does it affect, does it impact their quality of life right now? Are they any less safe because they think they're in Chicago? Nope.
No.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. Don't start the arguments if you don't need to.
Yeah. That is so awesome. Yeah, because we really talked about validating the situation, and to let your guys go in and validate whatever they think. They're, let them be right. It's all right. Somebody's got to get on their team. And like you said, the de-escalation is key. And to not haul them in under the sedation of drugs is so important. That is so great. Yeah, the way you go out into the community is really cool here in Claremont County. And to be able to check on these folks after you've had a run and you've identified that they have a challenge there. And then, you've been so great at bringing in all different kinds of resources, not just me, but what are some of the other resources you've brought into your community?
Um, we obviously utilize whatever the county has, which is Claremont Senior Services. We utilize them. There are some nonprofits that have a little bit of money that they'll come out and help repair, stairwells, railings, things like that. I use local churches for some of the stuff. They actually want to help. They just don't know how to engage. So I use local churches. I don't know. I got a whole list of things, but right now, obviously, they're not popping on the top of my head. But so really, what I do is I meet those folks where they're at, and I figure out what are they missing. And I like to think of it as a puzzle. Mm-hmm. We all have our life is full of puzzle pieces, and if we're functioning cognitively, physically, mentally, and spiritually, all those pieces fit together. And when something comes up, we're able to manage those parts. Unfortunately, for a lot of the people that I get involved in, they socially don't have anyone else in their life. Physically, they're having a lot of medical problems. And then that, turns into emotional issues, mental health issues, depression, anxiety. And so just having a connection, I think, is something that means a lot to these folks, that I show up and check on them. So at least they got somebody that cares about them. I think that's probably the biggest value, maybe.
I think you're a lifeline. I think you're a lifeline to some of these folks.
I like that.
Yeah, I think you're a lifeline. And the other thing is that even with dementia, frequently folks struggling, their brain is struggling, they still respect the uniform. And so they're gonna be respectful when you come, and they're gonna listen. And so that's on your side,
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah.
It definitely helps.
So what are some things that you told me some of the things the guys are doing, which has helped? What are some things we still need to work on?
Probably, well, when it comes to dementia,
yeah,
I think it's a cultural thing. What you're doing, educating the community, educating the public, educating the different retirement centers, the people that are responsible to help care for the elderly. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the biggest thing we can do, is help change the knowledge that they have, and how do they manage these folks, because we can't put it on them. Right. It's not their fault that they now have dementia.
No.
And unfortunately, so many times we see they're on their own, that they actually live on their own, and no one has any idea that they have declined to the point that they are. And I sometimes don't even know how they function this long.
Right.
So I think that connection and the education that you provide.
Yeah. And you brought up a really good point, because families can call mom or dad or grandma, grandpa, but the right side of my brain has the ability to be cordial. Frequently, I've got, simple chit chat right there. Good. How are you? I'm fine. Yeah. Everyone's good. Dog's good. Yeah. Weather's nice. And yeah, we're doing fine. Yeah. Thanks for calling. And then they show up at the house for the holiday and go, oh, they had no idea. Right. And so it's interesting. Our brains are so incredible, and I'm forever studying to try and learn more. But language and cognition is usually a left side brain thing. But boy, we've got some tools on the right side. That idle chit chat, that ability to be cordial and sound like things are okay when they're not. And something else that we talked about was the emergency words. And, once I can't find my words, I might just cuss at you or call you bad names. And so to help educate family and first responders that, look, they're not just being disrespectful, they're communicating, and you may not like the way they're communicating because they're calling you something horrible, but they're still communicating. And can we get everyone to pause and try and figure out what's going on here? Because normally when they're using those words, especially with emphasis, with emotion behind it, there's pain, fear, anxiety going on. And can we be good detectives and see if we can figure out, are they in pain? because they can get to the point where they're in a lot of pain. They could have a broken hip and they're standing, trying to walk, they're cussing at you. And it's not really at you so much as they're just responding to the pain on their hip. They may not even point to the hip or hold it. There's a disconnect in this brain failure. And it can be ingrown toenail that is giving them so much pain. And yet they can't tell you what the pain is. You just happen to walk in at the right time. And
Right.
you SOB, you whatever. And it's like, whoa. So I think we really have opportunity to pause and decide whether we're going to be part of the solution or part of the problem here. Are we going to be a detective or a judge? And to get people to step back and look at that is so important, not just with first responders, with everybody, with family. I talk to family members every day about that. Can we hit pause and realize that, their ability to communicate could be severely jeopardized, and you could definitely be part of the problem with, now you better be nice. I came in here to take care of you, and finger wag them down. It's going to get ugly. And there's so much teaching we still have to do, Jim.
Right. And it seems like there's more and more because of this the baby boom population has increased, and they're going to continue to increase. The number of memory care facilities are just exponentially going up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've got 3 here in the township, and the expense is anywhere from $7,000 to $11,000 a month.
Yep.
And unfortunately, families don't have that kind of money.
No.
So they do what they can at home. They put multiple locks on the door with alarms, and somehow they haven't lost the ability, their cognitive ability to think and act on some things is lost, but their ability to figure out how to be a Houdini and get out of the house still exists.
Well, one thing I tell people is they tend to not look up or look down. So don't put the locks all right here. Put a little slide lock up high or down low, because they typically don't
Right.
look up and look down. So just little thought there, something you might tell them. But yeah, this population, and if they don't have any money, you can't go to memory care on Medicaid. You can go to a long-term care community. You can go to skilled nursing on Medicaid, but they're not necessarily trained in memory care.
No, and we see that on a regular basis.
Yeah, and they may get tossed into situations that are just so out of their capacity to cope, and they're just and sadly they're going to get medicated, and that just breaks my heart, because that's an individual. They're in there. We could probably communicate if we take time to figure out how to communicate with them, but they get put in, and I don't know. That's why I have to keep doing what I'm doing too, because somebody's got to go help them and figure this out a little bit better. And you know what? I really encourage families, if you do need to place mom, dad, your spouse, hit the pause button again. In a perfect world, I would say bring in private duty for a few months and acclimate them to some private duty.
Right.
And then have a situation come up at the house, like there's mold or, whatever, there's termites. We're going to have to get out for about a month. We're looking at a couple of places, and then go ahead and move them, thinking it's temporary, and let them take their private duty with them. In a perfect situation, I would transition people that way. And the likelihood of them acclimating and not getting sent out to a behavior unit or emergency room or calling you guys because all of a sudden they freak out because they're scared to death because this doesn't look right. And where's my home? I need to go home. I need to go home. Rah! And then next thing you know, they're becoming aggressive. But you know what? If I think you're assaulting me, I'm going to be aggressive too.
Right.
That's what we have to understand.
Right.
So what do you think the next step is for me training more first responders?
Well,
do you think
it would be good if you could bring that education throughout, the other local fire departments, truly.
Okay.
Because I guarantee that they did, just like we didn't know a lot of that information, I guarantee they don't know, because being a fire and, an EMS instructor at the state level, I never really understood dementia that well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not something I taught the students that I had. And so I think just education, getting it out to the schools, getting it out to the local vocational schools that are doing the paramedic and EMT programs would be very valuable.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's good. All right. Well, we have a lot of work to do. That is for sure. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate the way you go out and see these folks on a regular basis in the community. Like I said, I really believe you are the lifeline. And I know that I've met with families thanks to you. And we've taken this education a step further just to have the family all get on the same page.
Right.
And try and pull in the same direction. Because, sadly, people with dementia are hardest on the people closest to them. And you may have one daughter or a spouse who are really getting beat up. And then when someone comes in from out of town to visit, they're very cordial and they don't see how hard it is. And that's why it's so important to get everybody on a Zoom call or around the kitchen table and help them understand what's really going on here. And I know there are times when I advise them, call your local fire and EMS, let them know that there is somebody here that, has brain changes.
Right.
Let the police know too. It'd be important. And maybe we need, if that person is thinking of, leaving, if there's a chance they could get out and leave, maybe they need to have something on them. And what do you recommend people to do if their person may want to elope?
So there's a lot with today's technology. Obviously, there's multiple GPS related products. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the name of the one. Is a bracelet.
Okay.
It's a bracelet program that you can invest in. It's very expensive for the community to, like if it's the police department, to invest in it. And then I think it's expensive for the patient as well.
Mm-hmm.
But with some of the life alerts now, there are life alerts that are extremely affordable that have a GPS built into them.
Nice.
So I believe that may be the way to move forward, is to find this technology that, they not only a life alert, it's also a GPS tracker.
Yeah.
So that they can find them.
That's a great idea. How often would you say you guys get a call for a missing person, especially a missing senior? One of my folks.
Probably 3-4 times a year, maybe.
Okay.
Sometimes maybe I don't even know about it because that would be a police call first.
Okay. Yeah.
And if the police find them, which normally they're next door, a lot of times they went out for a walk and they came back and they went to the wrong, and they're sitting on the back porch because they can't get in the house, and that's where they're at. And so a lot of times police will find them. They'll find them on the back porch, and we never even get called. Sure.
Because it turned out it was no emergency.
But probably a few a year that we end up, and it becomes a search, a true search for the person.
Right. And, in my experience, there's wandering, and then there's eloping. Wandering might be I just plain was able to get outside because I really wanted to go out and sit on that swing or look at the bird feeder. But in elopement, usually there's motive that I gotta go pick up those kids, and nobody here seems to understand that I need to go pick up now might have been a 40-year ago experience, but in my mind right now, I have got to get out of here. And they're a little sneakier, and they tend to be on a mission, and they're going in a direction. And my understanding is they'll keep getting themselves in even tighter and tighter situations. They can get into the woods and then end up, in a drain pipe. And those folks are the hardest ones to find. But boy, if we could have, some type of identifier or GPS, that could save a lot of worry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of these
I think that'd be a recommendation for anyone that has a family member, would be to research and find the latest, greatest product that's affordable, and at least utilize that until something better comes along.
Yeah, and there really are affordable safety features you can just put on your front and back doors so that you get notified whenever the door, opens.
Right.
So start there, or you could have a camera there watching. when they go out.
Right.
So many things.
I
So
just
many.
set a home up that you mentioned that. I just set a home up the other day. The resident is starting. She's at the beginning stages of some cognitive decline, and she truly believes that the neighbor came over and dug up all of her plants, and he climbed the fence, got in her shed, and he took garden tools out of her shed. And so she called the police. The police came out, couldn't find anything really related to that, so they called me. I went out to the house, spoke with her, found out who her support system was, which is a niece that lives in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And so I engaged her. We called, we did a home safety visit with all three of us, her obviously being over Zoom or on a cell phone. And then we met at the house a couple weeks later, and I installed a lockbox on the house. I installed a Zoom or a Ring camera because she had a Ring on the front door already. So I helped install a Ring camera on the back porch, and one in the home that the resident agreed to so that her niece could then just have a better, safer, feel more secure about her aunt living there at the home alone.
Right. And that's unfortunate that she's obviously paranoid and suspicious. I mean, were those things dug up and were there tools missing, or
No.
none of the above? Okay. So yeah, she's definitely going to need more help.
Right.
For out of town people, there are what we call geriatric care managers. There are people who will be that out of town daughter, or, for families. Just another
I'm going to
idea.
write that down.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, geriatric care managers, and depending on what part of town, I could just call me and I'll give you some referrals on what part of town.
Yeah, we'll talk after. We'll talk after this.
Okay.
Because I think that would help.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be helpful for that person. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier our Claremont Senior Services. We really are blessed in Claremont County with Claremont Senior Services, and they do a lot of great things. They'll even send the bus out to pick up your loved one if they're willing to take them in for activities. And they don't call it a daycare or adult daycare or anything. It's very respectful. It's the Claremont Senior Services, and they have great activities there. So another great thing that we have in town that I know that you refer people there too, and that's a great thing.
I do, and unfortunately, they're kind of tax based, and their ability to help is limited on a lot of things. But yes, they definitely do a lot. They do what they can.
Yeah,
and that's a lot for a lot of the people in our community. At least throughout the county, is a lot of service does get done.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I just so appreciate you coming on and sharing ideas. I'm thankful that I've been able to get in and do some staff training with your teams. That was very rewarding to me. And if you remember, they took me on a run, which was a lot of fun to meet a lady. And yeah, we need to just schedule that again and get back in there. I'm sure you've got some new team members.
No, we do. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get that back on the calendar. But yeah, I think this was really great information to get out there to folks in their own communities, to know there could be resources like Jim, someone who could be doing service like this. But that I think we both agree, Jim, that first responders need dementia training, like so many other people. And the way your teams responded was just overwhelmingly positive for me. I really didn't know what they were going to think of this lady coming in, this old nurse, thinking she knows something about dementia that nobody else seems to understand and to share. And they were overwhelmingly receptive to get these new ideas and these new tools in their tool belts to be able to go out there and serve the community. So it was a win-win. It was a win-win for the community too. So I'm looking forward to coming back again, serving your teams.
Right. Yeah, it's overwhelming. That's why they appreciated that so much, because those type runs overwhelm us too, because we don't want to force these people. We get kind of what happens, and we know how it ends. And so that's why I think that was so receptive, is because that gave us a tool that we could utilize.
Good. So. Good. Well, we'll keep working in that direction. I'll keep coming up with more tools for your teams.
All right.
All right. Great. All right. Well, we're going to call it a day. And Thank you so much for being part of my podcast, Memory Care with Teresa. You can, of course, find us on Spotify, on YouTube, and these actually get posted on our website, teresayoungstrom.com. And we just keep looking for more really great, valuable people to bring on here to share great information with your community, so that then you can be able to have great services in your community too. So again, Teresa Youngstrom, please like, subscribe, and share. And remember, you got this.